Welcome to Pro Audio Profiles. My name is Brendan Decora, and each week I'll be hosting different guests, mainly engineers and producers, but also people from across the industry. Enjoy. On this week's show, we have Andrew Synowiec. He has credits with Lil Nas X, The Who, Cobra Kai, Killers of the Flower Moon, The Simpsons, and many more. Enjoy. So I want to thank you first and foremost for being here on the show with me.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Appreciate it. I'd like to start if you want to kind of go over your backstory, how you got started, that kind of thing.
Well, I have two older brothers, and I grew up in the pre-internet age.
Okay.
So not as many distractions and that kind of thing. And my brothers were way into music, so it's kind of what I was into.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and then my middle brother plays guitar.
Okay.
And so that was kind of like pretty clear influence, like, well, I should do that. And it was cool because we weren't real close in age to where there was like a competition thing. It was more like he was real supportive and kind of showed me a lot of stuff.
Nice. Yeah. Did you guys have a band together or?
Not really, because I think I wasn't, because there was a little bit of an age gap. It was like, well, I wasn't cool enough to be in the band per se,
Exactly.
but like he had his garage band and I had my garage band. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah. Awesome. And that was, where was it again?
A little town called Annapolis, Maryland. So it's like halfway in between Baltimore and DC.
Okay. Good
place to kind of do artsy stuff as a kid because it wasn't super saturated like LA, Right. So yeah, it was great. And then when I was about 15, I had this teacher that was like a working guitar player, and his name's Tom Lagana. Shout out Tom Lagana. Okay. He's still there doing his thing.
Awesome.
Doing really well. And he was great because he's like kind of took me under his wing and eventually kind of was like letting me sub for him and that kind of thing. Cool. Like he was, it was, again, a town like that, you could work like every night of the week,
Right.
And so if he got a better gig, he'd be like, hey, go into Paul's Cafe and like play some solo guitar.
Nice.
Kind of show me that kind of stuff that they don't teach you in school.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And what led you to LA and the studio scene?
So, well, before LA, I was, I was a garage band kid and kind of like a rock, like, I probably want to be rock star like a lot of us were and into metal and stuff like that and any kind of technical music.
Right.
And through my love of like anything kind of weird and left of center and like exotic sounding and even in like kind of punk in aesthetic more than genre, like stuff like nobody likes this, so it must be good, Right. Of course, I found jazz and that kind of music because
nobody likes that.
Exactly.
I'm just kidding.
Exactly, the ultimate punk music. But so I got pretty well into that kind of stuff, and I ended up. As we were talking earlier, I went to school down at the University of Miami.
Okay.
And while I was in Miami, I did kind of anything you can do as a player in the music industry. More solo guitar gigs, wedding band gigs, touring with other artists, and studio work and original band stuff.
Okay.
And like kind of for better, for worse, the only thing where I was like, this is amazing, I want to do this every single day of my life for the rest of my life, was studio work. Right. And at the time, there was a guy named Dan Warner who's like, I don't know if you knew that name from, he was like, the king of guitar in South Florida and just the greatest guy. And he also was a big help to me in my career and would recommend me for things. But I also saw like, this is a pretty small pond, and like he's kind of doing all of the best stuff. Right. And he's not going anywhere. Yeah. And I thought like maybe I should just try my hand in the biggest pond, Yeah. So yeah, I just packed up everything in my Honda Civic and drove all across the country in like 3 days.
3 days.
Yeah.
That's quick.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, it's par for the course for me.
Yeah. Awesome.
But
Awesome. Did you have contacts out here, or how did you kind of get started?
I had there was one friend who I had gone to school with. Shout out Fred Crone.
Okay.
He's killing it here. Who was only a couple years older than me. And then there was a guy that was like maybe 10 years ahead of me. That was like the guy you call when you move here.
Right. Okay.
And he was a composer doing a lot of mostly like custom movie trailer scoring.
Okay. Right.
I don't even know if that's still a thing, but
yeah.
This was like early 2000s. You know, he would do like, you know, there's huge budgets for like a movie trailer.
Right. Yeah.
Just for the music part. And they would hire him to, essentially the way it works is they would temp it up. So temporary placeholder music.
Right.
We like this James Brown track, but it's going to cost $300,000 to license it, and we only want 3 seconds.
Yeah.
And then also at the end, though, we like this Metallica track, but that's going to cost $500,000 to license, and we only need 5 seconds. So can you give me 3 seconds of James Brown and 5 seconds of Metallica? Awesome. And I had made this demo CD. So again, kind of I guess there was like MySpace and stuff, but it wasn't like what it is now where you could just, your Instagram is your business card. That wasn't a thing, you know? So I had this CD that was like, Andrew Synowiec, session guitarist. My picture on the cover. And it was like really short snippets of like, you know, metal guitar playing and classical guitar playing, and
different
like
examples.
so somebody would just put it in. It would be like real quick, like boom, boom, boom. Wow, this guy does everything.
Nice.
And I gave that to him, and he luckily was in the position where he needed to hire somebody, and he was like, "All right, kid, I'll give you a shot."
Nice.
You know, and it worked out. And then he referred me to his friends, and those friends referred me to their friends, and
nice.
Here we are.
Nice. And so, do you still do a lot of film scoring, I'm assuming?
Yeah, I do a lot of that, a lot of film scoring, and then record projects.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. So one of the things I like to talk about a lot on the podcast is kind of how to inspire the artist in the studio. And, you know, as a session musician and as an artist yourself, you kind of have a unique perspective on that because, you know, a lot of it is like, you know, for engineers, how to like prep the room or prepare things. And, you know, it's like, how do you, you know, walk that line between putting your own kind of spin on it and also adhering to the artist's vision, you know?
Yeah, well, I think you can sort of tell when they have a really clear vision and they want you, you know, they'll say, this is what we want, and they either play you an example or they say, I want it to sound like purple raindrops, like in a windstorm, and you go, okay, yeah, hold on, I got that sound right here. Yeah, also the being an artist part, also I think working on my own records now kind of gives you a little more empathy for what people are going through. Yeah. I definitely try to not like be on my phone and you know, try and really be present and like show that I care.
Yeah,
you know, it's a fine line though, because like you can't care so much that they're like, hey, do a solo, and then you do a solo. You can't care so much that you're like, no, that's the solo. It's like, because it's not your name on the record.
Right.
So it is this dance in a way, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And in your opinion, what role does a session musician play in contributing to the artist's performance?
Well, it's different every time. I mean, most of the time it's kind of like not drawing attention to yourself, but actually just making them be the best that they can be. But certainly in the room, like while the process is actually happening, you can really steer the ship in subtle ways, you know, mostly just with your kind of energy and like being positive, hopefully, or if they're not feeling positive, then you're just more of a support system sometimes. You know, that's okay too. Yeah, it's always different. That's what kind of keeps it interesting.
For sure.
It's never really like the same thing every day. There's always some new element at play.
Right. And how do you, like, when you work on film scores, obviously the composer is sort of the artist in that respect. So how does that vary when you're working
it's
with
not
them?
that much different other than probably, there's the parameters are much more strict.
Right.
Because like if it's somebody's record, it's like, well, this could be kind of anything unless we really want it to be country pop or whatever. Then sure, there's parameters there. But in the film scoring world, it's much more, it's probably already been discussed and committed and analyzed and reanalyzed to death by the time it even gets to me,
Right.
So it's pretty clear cut what we need to do. Usually it's almost like, don't stray too much from what I tempt up.
Right. Just copy it exactly. Just make it sound better. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, they just want that human element.
Right. Have you ever been in a situation where you had to significantly change your playing style or technique to fit a session?
That's a good question. I don't, not necessarily, because, hopefully I wouldn't be there in the first place if that's...
Right.
I had a situation where the music, it was a really, of course, it was like the best thing I've ever worked on, and it didn't go anywhere, it flopped.
Jeez.
But it was this crazy show, I guess series, because it was going to be for streaming. And it was all kind of, they wanted like early Metallica and thrash and like stuff like that. And they also wanted to hire the people that, like, people from those bands.
Right. Wow.
And, but the composer, but they, it's always a funny thing. It's like, let's get the guys from Suicidal Tendencies.
Right.
But they need it to fit a structure of like, we need 20-second ramp up and then like some ambient stuff for a minute. And then, so they brought in a composer who wanted to bring in me.
Right.
And I could tell as soon as I walked into the room, the director, who was really the one that like, I want to see guys from bands, just took an immediate dislike and like, this is the guy. So like, I come up, like, wouldn't even shake my hand and stuff. It was really funny.
Jeez.
So, but I just went in there and I just played like the most like ugly, aggressive sounding stuff. And by the end of the day, everybody was high-fiving and it was cool.
Awesome.
Yeah. But it happens occasionally, but luckily not that often. It's great. Honestly, I love that. Like, it's cool. Like, that becomes the challenge,
Right. Just kind of fitting in and making it work.
It's great.
Nice. I just want to take a quick break and tell you about my free snare guide. In it, I go over all my techniques, from drum choices, microphone placement, tuning, even mixing techniques. Check it out now at brendandecora.com/huge-snare. And now, back to the show. And how do you prepare before entering a studio, knowing that you may need to adapt to different artists' needs?
Man, I heard the best quote, and I forget who said it, but it was like, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready.
Right.
And in some ways, that's kind of the hardest part of the job is like, I learned this a long time ago the hard way. The one day that I'm like, oh man, I don't have anything to do tomorrow. Let's like, is the day that I like get a call to like at the last minute go in and do something difficult,
Right, not expecting it.
So like, there is kind of a responsibility, I feel anyway, to like, I kind of always get up pretty early and practice. And like, I have my little routine to make sure that I'm in a good physical and like mental headspace kind of all the time.
Right.
And that's almost as much as of the job as anything. Like, because you're almost like a fireman where like, you never know. It's like that scene from Ghostbusters, like, we got one.
Yeah.
I sort of always just like, okay, if somebody needs me to play some crazy banjo thing, I want to know that it's not totally dusty.
Yeah, exactly. I've even gotten calls before where it's like, the clients are here now. How soon can you get here?
Right.
I'm like, really?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Jeez. And what does the collaborative process look like? Obviously, a lot of us are doing remote work now. You have your beautiful studio here. How how does it vary when you're here working remotely versus going into places?
Well, going in and working in real life is always the best thing because so much of communication is nonverbal, you know? And often people, as you well know, they say one thing, but they mean something else.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And until you're there, like, and they say, you know, I don't know, big power chord thing, and you go, oh, like this.
Right.
And you give them exactly that, and they go, no, like, that's the, you know, you really kind of need to have that happen to understand what they really are looking for.
Right.
Yeah.
And do you do, like, live kind of, like, video call sessions with people, too?
So now, I mean, one of the good things that came out of the whole pandemic was, like, I got my whole Zoom and Audio Movers thing really dialed in, and people, you know, are now, I think, more comfortable doing that.
Right.
And they're hip now to the way that all works. So for new people I haven't worked with, 99% of the time, I make them at least, like, get me started for 15 minutes, and then you can leave. But, like, let me make sure. So,
exactly.
And I have a little Pro Tools template where, you know that there's a plugin called Mute-O-Matic.
Yeah,
that thing is great. Yeah. So I bring in Zoom from a separate feed, and it kind of mutes it. Yeah, I don't have to do any of that stuff.
Nice.
Yeah,
awesome.
It took me a while to get that figured out, but now it's great.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's cool. Can you describe one of the more memorable recording sessions you've been a part of?
The thing that jumps out, and I've already kind of told this story a bunch, but is like I did this one song for the most recent album by The Who.
Okay.
And I mean, just they weren't there, but the fact that I got to work on a Who record is like, I can't believe I'm saying that sentence out loud, you know?
That's awesome.
It was incredible.
Nice.
They sent me the track ahead of time to learn, and then I went, it was Dave Sardi producing, so I went over to his place, and it was one of those things like, they had this placeholder guitar for like ever, for like I think like 2 years or how you know since the beginning of the project. They were like, okay, well, we'll do this song, and we'll replace that guitar, and it was like down to the wire, like we gotta get this thing replaced.
Jeez.
So I just went in and played it, and that was the first take I did was the very first time I heard Roger's voice and everything the way it was intended.
Nice.
Yeah, and
That's
it was
cool.
just like it was. I mean, it was like okay, I could die now. Like, it was amazing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, you have your home studio here. Obviously, you're a bit of an engineer yourself. You do all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm like a wannabe engineer. I really love that stuff.
But how do you balance like the creative side, when you're working on your own music even? Like, how do you stay inspired without getting caught up in the technical stuff?
Well, if it's my own music, I tend to let somebody else handle that, Like I'll do like really make sure the writing part of it is cool and the nuts and bolts of the compositions. And then I try and do the casting part, which is like who do I think would be the best players for this? And then kind of where would be the best place or who would be the best to capture it. Mm-hmm. And then, I mean, that's what the best like producers do is like, think about it, make it, put your time in, do your homework, pick the right people, but then let them do their thing. Like you hired them for a reason.
Yes.
Now let them do their job and you do your thing, which is just, in that case, be an artist or whatever, whatever that means.
Exactly.
But that's the best producers, I think. It's kind of frustrating when people are, like, you see it happen. Like, why are you telling this drummer what to play? He just played the perfect thing. Did you even hear the first thing he did?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
so I try not to do that.
Yeah, exactly. But when you're hired for a session and you have to engineer yourself, like
if I'm working here, I mean, I've done it so much now that it's sort of second nature.
Okay.
I try. There's times where, like, I can experiment, and it's I try and use those times to like try stuff that might not work or to try something new.
Right.
And then there's other times where it's like, okay, we're on a time frame here under a deadline, and those are the times where I just go with what I know works.
Right. Of course, where you use templates.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I mean, that's the nice thing about having your own place. It's like everything's always the same. you know.
Right.
It's not like some new studio every day.
You always know what to reach for.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you guys do it where you're like in a new room every day. And
I mean, it could be tricky for sure. You know,
I guess that's part of the fun too.
Yeah, it is for sure. And I mean, we kind of just talked about this a little bit, but maybe you can expand on it. Is how has the role of the session musician changed with advancements in recording technology and home studios and those kind of things?
Well, yeah, you kind of have to do everything now.
Yeah.
I think that goes for just about any career in the music industry. Everybody does a little bit of everything. And I think whatever your main thing is, that kind of determines what the things are on the periphery of that.
Awesome. And how has your approach to working with artists evolved over time?
I think I take more of like a 30,000 foot view now.
Okay.
Whereas like in the beginning, you know, there is that thing where you're like, okay, they said they want it to sound exactly like this. Whereas now I know like they could say anything and it may or may not mean that. So I'll actually kind of do more of like what I think it should be and wait and see like, are they hating? You know, you kind of like out of the corner of your eye, you're like,
awesome.
In a way, it's like a little, you know, what my British friends would say, like, "Oh, you're a cheeky bastard." Huh? You know, you're a little bit like, "Hey, can I get away with this?"
Yeah.
But ultimately, it is for the good of the project. You know, like, and if you can sort of tell, like, oh, they don't like what's happening right now, or they do. Right. I mean, that's obviously that kind of thing you can really only do if there's instant feedback in real time.
Of course.
I'm not going to. If somebody's not here, you know, and I'm sending them a track, I probably wouldn't just do that and risk it. You know,
because you never know.
Yeah, that's one of the hard things about guitars too. Is like, I've started, you know, trying to kind of educate people who might hire you, even producers sometimes. Like they'll say, "Yeah, we just cut bass and drums, and now we want to come and cut guitars." And we did 12 songs, bass and drums in one day. And I go, "Yeah, How many drum tracks were there? One take of drums?
Right.
Okay. One take of bass? Cool.
Yeah.
So one take of guitar? Oh, no, more than one take of guitar?
Right.
Oh, okay. 16 layers of guitar? And you think we're going to do all that in one day?
Exactly.
You know, you have to sort of like remind them, like, it's a different thing,
it's
you know?
It's a little different, yeah.
So like sending the files, you know, getting back to the thing about taking risks, that's when definitely you want to make sure that people are here in real time.
Right.
You know.
For sure.
Yeah.
And so there's a question that I actually don't have on here anymore that I've asked before, but I really like to do it. I'm going to try to remember what it was, but it's basically like, what do you wish that you could tell people that misunderstand what session musicians are there for? You know, like, what's your advice for people that
hire
you? Yeah.
Most of the time it works out really well. Sometimes I'll encounter two ends of the spectrum. One is like people are too like, oh, okay, here you go. You all right? It says, can I ask you could I add one more thing?
Right.
Like two, like, I'm here for you.
Exactly.
Tell me what to do, you know?
Exactly.
Put me in, coach. Like, I'm here at your disposal. Like, push me. Make me do like, that's what I'm here for.
Right.
Tell me. I'm not going to be offended if you ask me to play like David Gilmour. I would love that, you know? Help me help you.
Exactly.
That's like one end of the spectrum. And then the other one, which I kind of encounter more, is the, I think it's just people are so used to just dealing with computers.
Right.
That they'll just be like, great, another take. And we haven't taken a break. And you're going, hey, you know, like.
I can only focus for so long.
Well, yeah, like, you know, so. That, and also like you do it. The worst is like you're in a studio and you're out in the studio, and then there's people in the control room, and you're there by yourself, and you're in there playing your heart out, and you get to the end of the thing, and the song ends, and you look up, and they're in there talking, but they're not talking to you.
Yeah,
and you're going,
talkback's not on. Yep.
Was that good? Was it terrible? Tell me something either way. You know.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the worst, because you're like, when you feel like people aren't even listening,
Right.
That I think that's kind of the thing that to answer your question, like that I wish people knew. It's like, again, it comes back to like, help me help you, you know?
Right.
Like, we're all trying to make this better. Like, and, you know, there's that thing where like, geez, they're probably like trying to call Dean Parks or something right now, like get me out of here, kind of like they're gonna kick me out, or like, you know, your mind starts like,
then they get on the talk back, that was amazing, you know.
Yeah.
You never know.
Or they're like talking about what to order for lunch most of the time.
Exactly.
That's that's the other thing that I wish people would do.
Yes.
It's like, just order lunch before you start, because they always wait until you're hungry, and then like everybody gets hangry, and it's like,
and it takes an hour and a half for it to get back.
It cracks me up when people go, yeah, we should order. It'll be here. And I'm like, is this your first day?
Yeah.
It's not going to be here soon.
Right. Exactly.
It's going to be 2 hours.
Exactly. Well, in a similar question, like when you're working on your own music and you're hiring your friends.
No, then
and
I'm a total slave driver. Forget it. No breaks, no food.
Exactly. No, but what have you learned when you're in those shoes? You know, when you're working with people and hiring people.
Yeah, I do try. I mean, conversely, I do find myself like, we got to get more songs done or whatever.
Right.
But yeah, I certainly try and keep the other thing in mind, you know?
Exactly.
I think as long as you're, honestly like appreciative of people, that goes a long way too.
Right.
You know, people, you can tell the difference when people are, thankful for what you're doing and what they're, when they're not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how do you maintain a strong working relationship with artists, producers, engineers after the session is over?
I'm really bad about that. And honestly, I think the thing, I mean, it's almost like a networking question that you're asking.
Yeah.
I honestly feel the best thing to do is to be so good that they can't help but tell like 3 of their friends.
Right.
Like, you have to hear this person.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's going to go much farther than, hey, let's do lunch.
Right.
Like,
for sure.
I mean, that's great too, but.
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's,
And maybe if I were good at doing the other thing, I would have a different answer. But I'm not. I'm just not wired that way. Like, I'm still kind of an East Coaster. Like, my thing is just like let my kind of guitar do the talking, I guess. And like, hopefully it's a great fit and people want to keep hiring you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That honestly, that speaks volumes over any kind of, at least for me.
For sure. I'm the same way, honestly. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Let the work do the talking.
Yeah.
Definitely. Is there any current or recent projects that you're allowed to talk about that you want to?
Yeah, I just did a song for the artist Lil Nas X. Which, I was really excited about that. Yeah, it was really fun. This producer, Omer Fetty, who's also like a ridiculous guitar player. He's like this kid. It's hilarious. He's unbelievable. He's like this crazy producer. But he just wanted to get, different perspectives.
Right.
So we did this band thing.
Nice.
That was fun. I got to play with Alanis Morissette this year. That was really fun for me.
Nice. With Victor, I'm guessing.
Yeah. Victor was on drums.
Nice.
It's great. Yeah. It's awesome. one show. It's incredible. Yeah. Nice. So that was different. And then I've been doing more of my own music. So that's a lot of fun. I put out a record this year and then just did a little tour for that, which is like totally new. Yeah. Because I sort of like I think the best thing to do, like when you get your feet wet in a new career or a new town or whatever, and this is what I did, is you just throw paint at the wall and see what sticks.
Right.
But certainly my focus was like studio work, like for better or for worse, I never got one of those really cool, crazy tours, you know. Right. So
have you done live gigs?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a ton of that stuff, but I never really like pursued it,
Right.
And so now to have my own thing and like try and tour behind that is kind of, it's really fun. It's actually really, because it's so new, I think it's still like very exciting for me.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah. I like to wrap up asking the same kind of set of questions for everyone. The first one is, who has been your most influential teacher?
I've had a few. I think I sort of mentioned some of them, like my older brother, my guitar teacher in Maryland, Tom Magana, teacher in Miami, actually, the people at the school were great. Randall Dallahan and Kencho Kane. And then Dan Warner was like super real world. Like he would let me come to sessions and I would always call him and ask him dumb questions. And he'd call me back at like midnight, on the way home from the studio. Like, well, no, you need to set the delay time to, that kind of thing. Well, you need a mixer so that you can have the delay and reverb in parallel or whatever, like ridiculous stuff. And he took the time for me, like that was really nice. And since I moved to LA, like certainly two of my biggest mentors are Tim Pierce and George Deering. Yeah, those guys are incredible, and they both been like so kind to me and stuff. It's been awesome. I've gotten to work with them side by side and just watching them see how they do their thing. That's been the greatest teacher,
Right. Absolutely. The next one is kind of more for engineers, but it's, what's your favorite reference track if you're going to a new studio? But like for you, what would you put on to be inspired? What would you put on to get in the mood?
I have, I don't know. I sort of have like my guilty pleasure records, some of which are kind of more guitar nerd stuff. Some are more like, it's funny. I think it's almost a universal record at this point for people like audio nerds, but like Tom Petty, Wildflowers.
Okay, yeah.
That's funny. That one, like if I'm having a bad day or whatever, I just put that on and crank it like in the car, and I just like instantly feel better,
Right.
Yeah, I love that record. Everything about it,
Nice.
There's a Sean Colvin record I really love too called "A Whole New You," I think. I love that John Leventhal playing and producing and writing and stuff. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, it's kind of equally like nerdy music and also like singer-songwriting and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome. Last question. What would be one tidbit you have for an upcoming session musician?
Oh, man, that's a good question. I think just be patient and just try and stay, versatile. Kind of like wear as many hats as you can in the beginning.
Right.
And then as you go along and kind of hopefully move up the totem pole, you can sort of like niche down a little bit and find what you really, really like to do and focus on that. That's kind of what I did, I guess.
Nice. Awesome, man. Cool. Well, thank you so much for taking the time.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Cool.
Thanks so much for checking out the show. Make sure to subscribe for all the updates, and I'll see you next week.